बोधितां भगवता नारायण स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतमृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीमष्टादशाध्यायिनीं अहं त्वामनुसन्धामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीं नमो अस्तु ते व्यास विशाल बुद्धे फूल अरविंद आयत पत्र नेत्र येन तव्या भारत तैल पूर्णः प्रज्वलितो ज्ञानमया प्रदीपः प्रपन्न पारिजाताय तोत्र वेत्र एकपाने ज्ञान मुद्राय कृष्णाय गीता अमृत दुहे नमः सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दुग्धा गोपाल नंदना पार्थो वत्सा सुधीर भोगता दुग्धम गीता अमृतम महत् वसुदेव सुतम देवम कंस चानूरमर्दनम देवकी परमानंदम कृष्णम वंदे जगद्गुरुम भीष्म द्रोण तटा जयद्रथ जला गांधार नीलोत्पला शल्ये ग्राहवती कृपेन वहने कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थाम विकर्ण घोर मकरा दुर्योधन अवर्तने सो तीर्णा खलु पांडवै रन्नदी कैवर्तका केशव पाराशरे वत्सरोजमलं गीता अर्थदोतकम् नानाख्यानक केसरम हरिकथा संबोधन अबोधितम् लोकै सज्जन षट्पदे रह हे पिये मानम मुदा भूयाद भारत पंकजम कलिमल प्रध्वंसी न श्रेयसी मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुम लंघ्यते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानंद माधवम् यं ब्रह्म वरुण इंद्र रुद्र मरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्ये स्तवे वेदै सांग पद क्रमोपनिषदै गायन्ति यम सामगा ध्यानवस्थित गतमतेन मनसः पश्यन्ति यम योगिनः यस्यन्तं न विदुसुर असुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः. We started the new chapter last Sunday, Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga. So chapter number 14.
Hersh?
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but what was this whole long prayer that you just said about?
Okay.
I realized it's about the Mahabharata.
No, this is about,
I understood.
Yeah, this is about Bhagavad Gita. So in this prayer, this is called a Gita Dhyanam. That's the name of this prayer. And we are thanking the Gita itself. This is a scripture we are reading. We are showing our respect to Bhagavad Gita. We are showing the respect to the author of it, Rishi Vyasa.
Mm-hmm.
And not only Rishi Vyas, we are even mentioning Rishi Vyasa's father's name, Rishi Parashar, in there. And then we are, of course, thanking Lord Krishna. And we are just saying that this is like a milk of all the Upanishads. There are 4 Vedas and 108 Upanishads. But if you look at the philosophy of all that and summarize it, it's all in Bhagavad Gita. So that's why it says, Sarvo Upanishado Gavo Dogda Gopala Nandana. So he summarized it, he milked it out, just like you milk the cow and get the milk. The same way, he just gave the summary of the Upanishads in Bhagavad Gita.
Okay? It's all condensed in there.
So it's all condensed in there. So we are thanking Lord Krishna, we are thanking the author Rishi Vyas, we are showing our respect to the scripture, and that's why I always tell you, never ever put Bhagavad Gita on the floor, please. Even in your home, just have a little table or a book stand. So show respect.
Right.
Show respect. I'm sure, Usha, you know, you are familiar with the Sikh religion. Guru Granth Sahib is their scripture. They don't even, it's not only putting it on the, not putting on the floor. They, when they carry it to one place to the other, they take it above their head, not even on the head.
Right.
Above their head.
Above
their head, that kind of respect. So I'm not asking you to keep it above your head, but don't put it on the floor though.
Yeah.
Okay, so showing respect, because when we show respect, then we can really enrich ourselves also with this wisdom. Okay, so that's what that is. So
Thank you.
thank you for asking. I'm sure there are a lot of people who don't understand it, but the
Yeah.
essence is that. Okay, and then
Right.
we do have translations of all these mantras also. And I'll ask Kim or Jyoti to put it in our website, the translation of it too, the
Okay.
English translation. Okay, that handout, please.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So let's start with the verse number 6 on chapter 14. Tatra satvam nirmaltavat prakashakam anamyam sukh sangena badnati jnana sangena cha anagha. So this is the verse we started doing last week. So Lord Krishna is saying of these means out of these three gunas, Satvikta, Rajsikta and Tamsikta, of these, Sattva, which because of its stainlessness is luminous and healthy. It binds by creating attachment to happiness and attachment to knowledge. Oh, sinless one. So sinless one is for Arjun, Anag. That's another name for Arjun. Lord Krishna is using. So as I was telling you last time, nothing can be defined as such. Even when we go to our doctor, we have certain disease, doctor will ask us, what are the symptoms? So over here also, explanation of these gunas, Lord Krishna is explaining with the help of the symptoms. So it's called a symptomatic description. This is more helpful because all of us should analyze and observe these symptoms in us. Not in anybody else, but in ourselves. We should look at the kind of emotions we have, the kind of thoughts which are arising in our mind. Only then we can see what's happening in our subtle body. So what is this nirmal tvat prakashakam? So nirmal means normal. That's why I said stainless, flawless. And sattva is like that. When the sattva is dominating in our thought life, because of its purity, mind is steady. And this mind can reflect very faithfully upon the self. Because we are supposed to pay attention to the soul, the self, who we are. So when there is no agitation, when there's a purity, there's a prakash. That's what it's called, prakash, the luminosity. Okay, so this is what it really means, the nirmal tvat prakashakam. Then he uses the word anamyam. Anamyam means healthy. Over here, healthy means free from evil. So evil tendencies which arise in the mind, they are part of Rajsik and Tamsik. Evil starts to germinate in our mental life when Rajsikta takes over. And it has really taken the roots when Tamsikta is predominant. So that's why we call evil the selfish agitations of the mind and the egocentric desires of our head. That is evil and that is unhealthy. So in a sattvic mind, it's anamyam, healthy, no evil tendencies. So sattva is free from all evils. So it's relatively free from rajsikta or rajsik agitations, or tamsikta means darkness. Okay. It's a most divine mental attitude. But Lord Krishna says it still binds us. So it's not dark, it's not unhealthy, there's not much selfishness, but still it binds because it's part of the Prakriti. See, Sukha Sangen Badnati Jnana Sangen Cha Anag. We got to look into it very carefully, because sometimes we think just walking on the sattvic path, that's all we need to do. Walking on the sattvic path predominantly should elevate us from these gunas. So that is the philosophy hidden in the second line. So sattva binds by attachment to happiness and knowledge. Because the soul, the Atma, part of Paramatma, is absolutely free, is neither bound by goodness nor by evil. Goodness, so-called goodness and so-called evil, they are all part of the Prakriti. It's almost like any kind of art, the person is an artist, whether she paints or sings. That's very sattvic. Sitting on the park bench, creating a poetry, looking at the nature. So sattvic. But a person can get bound with that happiness which a person is getting from that particular action. That's what he's talking about over here. So gets bound. See, just like a teaching. Teaching the scriptures, definitely, it's very sattvic. Everybody says that Lord Krishna himself, he said, so Gyan, Dan, or Gyan, Yajna is the best Yajna. But still we should not get attached to it. So Sattvikta also, because there is something above Sattvikta. By walking on the path of Sattvikta, we got to know ourselves, which is beyond even Sattvikta. So attachment even to the Sattvikta is not good according to Lord Krishna. Okay, so Sattva binds by attachment to happiness and knowledge. So again, this happiness, sure, we should be happy. He is not saying we should not be happy, but getting fixated on that happiness. And even with this knowledge also, knowledge is the means to climb up. Knowledge is not the goal. So he's making us aware of these bandhan, these bondages. Okay, so sometimes this is subtler thrills in our life, and there could be another subtler thrill, doing the seva. Doing the seva, sure, it's a sattvic to help somebody, to feed people, to help people, but it can be a bondage again. While doing these sattvic activities, one eye should always be on that ultimate goal, which is beyond these gunas. That's what he's trying to tell us. Okay. Then what is a Rajsik? Symptoms of the Rajsikta in the next verse. Raja Rag Atmakam Vidhi Trishna Sang Sam Udvam Tat Nibhadanati Kante Karam Sangen Dehinam. Raja, Rajsikta. Rag Atmakam, of the nature of passion. Vidhi, no, K-N-O-W. Trishna, Sang, Sam, Udvam. Trishna is the thirst, Sang is the attachment. So Trishna, Sang, Sam, Udvam, the source of thirst and attachment. Tat means that, Nibhadanati, binds. Konte, that is for Arjuna. Karam Sangen, by attachment to action. Dehinam, the embodied one. Know that Rajas to be of the nature of passion, the source of thirst and attachment. It binds fast. O Konte, the embodied one, by attachment to action. So a seeker who is striving to conquer his own mind must know all these subtler inclination. What am I doing? What is really happening inside me? Otherwise, these thoughts of ours, very fast they run. So he says, Rajas is to be the nature of passion. Passions are the main symptoms of the workings of Rajagun. Passion. Passion expresses itself in a million different ways. That's why very hard to even define what passion is. There are many urges, desires, emotions, feelings, they are all part of the passion. But Lord Krishna has brought all of that into two distinct categories: desire and attachment, Trishna and Sang. So the term desire is also a thirst. Just like a thirsty person would struggle, would suffer, wanting nothing but water to relieve his thirst. The same way a human personality thirsts for satisfaction of every desire that burns him down. That's why it's called a thirst, the Trishna. But once the desire is fulfilled, what happens? A sense of attachment comes into the mind. That is a sang. So first there's a desire, then there's an attachment. It's like a vicious passion to smother down our peace. We are supposed to be peaceful, but we start thinking about something or someone. When we have that thing or that person, then we want to control it, hold it. We see that in relationships with the people, we see that in the relationship with the objects. Attachment. So in other words, desire, what is the definition of a desire? It's our mental relationship towards objects which have not yet been acquired. So something which we don't have, we have a trishna for it, we have a desire for it. Desire is always about something you don't have. And the attachment is the mental slavery. We think that no, we cannot love without getting attached, or we just don't even understand the definition of love. That is a slavery. So attachment is the mental slavery which is binding us to the objects acquired. So desire is something we have not acquired, we want it, and attachment is something we acquired and we want to hold on to it. We don't want to let it go. That's what the slavery is. We become slave to the objects. That's what slavery is. So these two, desire for the acquisition of things and the creation of situations, which are expected to yield a certain quota of personal happiness. We do all this for the happiness. We think by doing this, by going there, by having it, I'll get happiness. So outside of us, we are looking for happiness. So there's nothing wrong in looking for happiness because it's our inherent nature. But we are looking for happiness at the wrong place. That is what the problem is. Our inherent nature is happy. So that's why I often tell you it's okay to do things, not for happiness, but happily. There's a big difference. Do it happily. That means it is really springing from your inner layers. You are not trying to hold on to it from the outside where you don't have much control. So desire for the acquisition of things and the creation of situations and the sense of clinging, attachment to things already so acquired. That's all Rajsikta, he says. And it binds fast. Tat nibdhanati kontyay, it binds. And what does it bind us to? To the action. Okay? Because if more the desires, the busier the life. And busy for what? To acquire more, to hold more. So such a passionate being, normally we say, no, passion is good, but this kind of a passion, which is full of desires for things not yet acquired, what does it do? It crushes us. We are really crushed under the weight and responsibility of our attachments to the things, and we want to, which we have possessed. That's where the burden comes. So this kind of a person cannot be quiet. Internally, I'm talking about, and sometimes internally, externally also it shows up. This kind of a person will talk too much, will act too much. The body will shake too much. So it all depends the degree of the sickness. So endlessly earning, spending, but still thirsting for more and more, never enough. That's Rajsikta. So anxious to have more, fearing to lose. This person gets entangled in the joys of his successes and in the pangs of the failures also, because in the world, if there is a success today, tomorrow there could be a failure too. Ups and downs in the outer world always be there. And when we bring that all inside, then constantly agitation. So Rajasic person is chained by his or her own actions, because Rajasikta is known by action. Because actions are born of passions. Passion arises from desires and attachment. That's what Lord Krishna is teaching us. So all these are the symptoms of the presence of Rajogun, which influences our mind. He's talking about the mind over here. Mind means the intellect also, and the mind also, and the chit also, total mind. So if the Sattva Gun binds us with its own anxieties for happiness and peace, wisdom and knowledge, Rajogun binds us with the infinite self, the soul, which is so infinite, which part of God is to the limited objects, limited prakriti, and it makes us very active. So, and what does tamas do? Number 8, tamatu agyan jam vidhi mohanam sarv dehinam parmad alasya nidra bhi tat nibdhanati bharat. Tama, the tamsikta, darkness, inertia. These are different translations for that small word tam. Tu means what? Agyan jam, born of ignorance. Vidhi, no, K-N-O-W. Mohanam, deluding. Sarv dehinam, to all embodied beings. Parmad alasya nidra bhi. Parmad is the carelessness. Alasya is the laziness. Nidra is the sleep. Tat means that. Ni badhanati, binds fast. Bharat is for Arjun. But know that tamas is born of ignorance, deluding all embodied beings. It binds fast, O Arjun, by carelessness, laziness, and sleep. So first he's saying tamas is born out of ignorance. Ignorance means we have totally forgotten who we are. agyan. That is agyan jam. So under the influence of tamas, a person's intellectual capacity to discriminate between the right and wrong gets veiled. It gets covered. Doesn't know what's wrong and what's right. And the person starts to act as if under some hallucination. Okay, so it becomes ignored, totally darkened personality. So endless misconceptions, miscomprehensions of the true divine purpose of life. That is a tamsikta. So a person like this, excessively tamsik, so this sleep really means he will sleep to the nobler and the diviner aspirations of life. See, sattvic person will say, no, I got to write, I got to teach, I got to do some selfless service. Rajasic person, the personal enjoyment. I got to have, I got to hold, I got to protect. But tamasic person is sleeping towards the nobler and the diviner aspirations of life. There's no consistency of purpose. Today doing this, tomorrow doing that. No consistency, not even staying on any path. Not even a Rajasic path. No consistency. There's no brilliance of thought. Another thing, in a tamasic person, there's no tenderness of emotion or nobility of action. In an individual who has come under the contamination of the tamsikta. Because we learn these things from very childhood. Be something, do something, help somebody. Make sure your thoughts are gentler. Make sure you never think of hurting anybody. But in a tamasic person, you will not see this. So these three gunas not only bring about different amounts of divine brilliance in a given individual, but also limit the eternal self in all its perfection, even though it's there. It's not that part of God is not there, but it's in tamsikta, it's fully covered. It's almost like you have a light bulb, you put a black covering on it. That's tamsikta. If you put a little red covering on it, that is rajsikta. If you put a white covering on it, that is satvikta. When you remove all of them, no covering, then you can see the light. This is what we have done. Okay, so sometimes there's a black covering in us, sometimes there's a red covering, sometimes there's a white covering, and that's what Lord Krishna is going to tell us. All these, the three gunas, are always present in all of us, but it all depends which one is predominating. That's the point he is going to make. So Sattva Guna, remember, illuminates the intellect with knowledge. It does. Sattvikta brings that, but if it's not accompanied by spiritual wisdom, what happens? That knowledge results in pride, and the pride comes in the way of devotion to God. That's why you will see a lot of people with a very high level of knowledge. Sometimes this knowledge itself becomes a hindrance. I know it all. I don't need to devote to God. Who is God? We cannot even see God. Prove it to me, then I'll believe in God. That often becomes an obstacle in a very highly educated person. So that's why I said Sattva Gun illuminates the intellect with knowledge, but we got to accompany that with the spiritual wisdom, and we got to get rid of the pride, the ego, because we don't want to have a wall between us and the God. Because people often start to think that if I cannot grasp it with my mind and intellect, it's not there. But divinity is beyond that. With mind and intellect, sure, we can understand the Prakriti. Whether it's a sharp intellect or a subtle intellect, Prakriti we can dissect. But in order to really get to know or to feel the oneness with God, Lord Krishna says, we got to drop it off, rise above this. So then in the next verse, he says, Sattvam sukhe sanjyati, raja karmani bharat, jnanam avritye tu tama, parmadde sanjyati ut. Sattvam purity, sukhe to happiness, sanjyati attaches. So sattva attaches to happiness. I am happy doing it, I'm going to keep on doing it. Bondage. The person forgets that there is something beyond happiness also. So Sattvam Sukhe Sanchati, Raja Karmani Bharat. Raja is the active force, the Rajsikta, Karmani to action. The workaholics. Jnanam, knowledge, Avritye, shrouding. Tu means verily, Tama means tamsikta. Parmade. Parmad is the carelessness. Ut means but. So Sattva attaches to happiness, Rajas to action. O Arjun, while Tamas verily shrouding knowledge attaches to carelessness. Careless. The person becomes careless. It's like slipping down and further down. So these are the ideas that have already been described in the last 3 verses, but he is summarizing it briefly over here for us. Okay, so especially this tamas shrouding knowledge attaches one to carelessness. Okay, so when do the gunas produce the effects that's described? So rajas tamach abhibhuya sattva bhavati bharat, raja sattvam tamach eva tamasatvam raja tatha. So you're all familiar with these words now. Rajas, tamaha, cha means and, abhibhuya, having empowered. Bhavati arises. And in the next line, raja, sattvam, tama, you are familiar with these. Cha means and, ev means even, tamaha, sattvam, raja, tatha. So very simple looking verse, but very deep message in here. Now sattva rises. Rises means prevails. O Arjun, having overpowered rajas and tamas. Now rajas having overpowered sattva and tamas, and tamas having overpowered sattva and rajas. This goes on in our life all the time. One is prevailing, the other two are not absent. They can erupt anytime too. So we got to be very vigilant about it, very careful about it. And this is what the sadhana is. Otherwise, there's no purpose in doing the sadhana. If we can conquer these two, lower one, and stay sattvic, then what is the purpose of the sadhana? Sadhana is to make sure that sattvikta prevails in our life. Satvikta. So, because nobody is 100% tamasic, 100% rajasic, or 100% sattvic. That's what he's trying to tell us. Okay, and then he will explain, he'll give us more examples and more explanation of these three. So, but now he's explaining how the same individual temperament oscillates among the three gunas. And I always give you the example of these three are like three wrestlers competing with each other. Each keep throwing the other down. And that's why sometimes the first is on the top, sometimes the second one is on the top, and sometimes the third one is on the top. Sometimes it could be dependent on the external environment. Sometimes internal contemplation, or even the sanskaras, the tendencies of the past lives. So that's how these gunas, they will dominate. Okay, so past sanskaras, we cannot do much about it now. But right now, the circumstances which are here in our lab, right now, present, what we can do about it? How can we stay more and more sattvic? Even though soul is beyond sattvikta, but with our effort, we can reach up to the sattvikta, the predominantly sattvic behavior, sattvic living conditions, sattvic relationships, sattvic desires, sattvic tendencies, that we can do. Pure. Sattvic means pure, white. Okay. So sattva rises, he says, when the other gunas are totally under its control, in your control. So they have the secondary importance. The primary importance is sattva. When the primary importance become into the rajsikta, the desires, the earning, the hoarding, the accumulation, then rajsikta is predominantly holding. Secondary becomes the sattvikta. I'll study the scriptures when the time comes. I'll get the blessings of the Guru or the God in my old age. That means the Sattvikta has become secondary. It's there, but secondary. And when Tamsikta becomes predominant, sure Sattvikta is there, but here and there. Sometimes we do puja or we open the Gita or any other scripture. There's so many beautiful scriptures in this world. We open it only or buy it, look at it, but never even open it. Because we are too lazy. Keep on postponing. Whenever we keep on postponing, procrastination is a tamsikta. I'll do it tomorrow. We don't. Tomorrow, we don't have any control over tomorrow. We have control over right now. And that is a sattvic person's thinking. Okay, so when tamas predominates over sattva and rajas, it really produces the effect of shrouding knowledge. And it makes the personality careless. So whenever we are careless, that's tamsikta. Our nobler duties, we are not aware of it. We think, no, me doing what's going to make a difference? There's so much darkness, what can I do? But we got to do our part. Sarvadvareshu dehe asmin. It's a very important verse, because how do we recognize whether we are predominantly sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic at any given moment? This verse tells us. Sarvadvareshu dehe asmin prakash upajayate jnanam yada tada vidyat vivridham sattvam iti ut. Sarvadvareshu, through every gate. Gate means the senses. Dehe means in the body. Asmin, in this, Prakash, wisdom, light, upjayate, shines. Jnanam, knowledge, yada means when, tada means then. Vidyat, it may be known. Vivridham, predominant. Sattvam, iti means thus, ut means indeed. When through every sense in the body, every gate in the body, the light of intelligence shines, then it may be known that Sattva is predominant. Because Sattva is the symptom of the Sattva is illumination. Illumination means the light. So that's why Lord Krishna is next these verses. We see that he's telling us how do we really know whether you are sattvic or not at this given moment. This, from the senses, the light. Okay. So he is giving us a more subjective insight into the symptoms produced by the gunas. So when through every sense in this body, these senses are like apertures of the physical structure. Our eyes, our ears, our nose, our touch, our taste. These are the windows of knowledge for the sense organs. Because knowledge is taken in through the senses, and according to the knowledge, the action organs will do the action. So it's like an inlet. That's what these senses are, inlet. What I see, that's how I behave. What I hear is very important. What I touch and taste also, very, very crucial. So the knowledge in me pouring out through the eyes also. Don't we can check a person, whether this person is a saint or a robber from their eyes. This is the light he's talking about. How a person touches us. When a guru touches us, we feel good about it. When a stranger touches us with some kind of a motive, same touch, but a different light coming out of it. So over here, it's not just the inlets only. Inlets, definitely these senses are, but he says the light is shining through the apertures. So when Satvika is there, the light will come. So the knowledge in me pouring out through the eyes become the power of vision and definitely illumines the surroundings. The eternal awareness through the ears. See, ears also, they are the apertures also. My comprehension of this world is much better that way. Wherever I go, my ears, they are listening. They are paying attention. That means it's a person who listens more. That means that power to hear is sattvic. They are comprehending better. How is Lord Ganesha symbolized? Big ears. So that symbolism says, definitely we got to hear more. Big ears. But then there should be a filter also. In the elephant ears, there's a filter. So filter what's going in. But comprehension has to be at a high level. And the divine light of cognition should beam through the tongue also. Tongue. So all these apertures, they say the 7 tongues of flame, the scriptures use that word, 7 tongues of flame shoot out from the same fire of knowledge. The self in each one of us. And what are these 7 tongues? 5 of these senses. 6th one is the mind, and then there's the intellect. 7 tongues. So we got to learn to go beyond rajas and tamas and make our heart full of sattva. And that's how we grow our capacity to observe and analyze better. That is the purity. Because a sattvic person can analyze, can comprehend, can come to the right decision faster. They can understand better. To become aware of the world outside and judge it rightly. That's what this light really means. Instead of staying in a very iffy way, more clarity. Light means more clarity by using all these senses. Okay? So the mechanism of knowing the world outside is the intellect. And that reflected in the intellect is the light of intelligence, by which we illumine the world of ideas, feelings, objects available to us. So sattvic person can do all that. And the last thing I would like to tell you, we got to end the class in 1 more minute. It is very well known that clean and a steady reflecting medium will reflect more efficiently than an unsteady, unclean surface. So sattvikta is steady, it's clean, and things are reflected on it better. That is what the light is. Okay, so we have a bhajan for you today, and hopefully we can have the bhajan with the help of the music also. We have Raj Bhai and Padmani. Raj Bhai is a expert, topmost, I would say, master in tabla player. So hopefully we can synchronize it, both of them through Zoom, and you can enjoy the bhajan. But look at these verses, because these verses are basically to really tweak, to understand our own inner equipment, not to judge somebody else. And you will definitely see some handouts also on the our online, wherever we post it. So you will see those also to understand it better. So before we start the bhajan, I think there is a question.
Yes, Sujata.
Yes, Sujata. Unmute. Sujata, unmute yourself, please. Can't hear you. Unmute.
Unmute.
Okay, now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I had a question about, you said in one of the verses, he talked about overpowering or empowering. And I'm just trying to find it here.
Why don't you, Sujata, look at it, and after the bhajan, I will definitely spend some time. Okay? So meanwhile, look for that detail, which verse where, so I'll definitely spend all the time. But meanwhile, Padmini and Rajbhai, Jyoti, just unmute them, and then they can sing bhajan for us, and I really thank them.
Okay. You have to unmute yourself.
I did. Namaste, Hershi.
Namaste, namaste, Padmini. Rajbhai, I think you have to unmute yourself too.
Now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. Great. Okay.
So I'll just start with our usual small Ganesh sloka, followed by Sri Radhe Govinda.
Okay, Padmini.
Jai Ganesh, गणनाथ दयानिधि। जय गणेश गणनाथ दयानिधि। सकल विघ्न कर दूर हमारे। मम वंदन स्वीकार करो प्रभु। चरण शरण हम आए तुम्हारे। जय गणेश गणनाथ दयानिधि। जय नंद लाला जय गोपाला, जय नंद लाला जय गोपाला, जय नंद लाला जय जय श्री राधे गोविंदा। मन भजले हरि का प्यारा नाम है श्री राधे गोविंदा। मन भजले हरि का प्यारा नाम है। Raj, they can't hear the tabla.
Can't?
No, can't hear the tabla.
Oh, there are more? Okay, I can play more. Okay.
श्री राधे गोविंदा मन भजले हरि का प्यारा नाम है। श्री राधे गोविंदा मन भजले हरि का प्यारा नाम है। गोपाला हरि का प्यारा नाम है, नंदलाला हरि का प्यारा नाम है। गोपाला हरि का प्यारा नाम है, नंदलाला हरि का प्यारा नाम है। श्री राधे गोविंदा मन भजले हरि का प्यारा नाम है। जय नंदलाला जय गोपाला, जय नंदलाला जय मोर मुकुट शिर कलवन माला, केसर तिलक लगाए, केसर तिलक लगाए। मोर मुकुट शिर कलवन माला, केसर तिलक लगाए, केसर तिलक लगाए। वृंदावन की कुंज कलिन में सबको नाच नचाए। वृंदावन की कुंज कलिन में सबको नाच नचाए। श्री राधे गोविंदा मन भजले हरि का प्यारा नाम है। गोपाला हरि का प्यारा नाम है, नंदलाला हरि का प्यारा नाम है। श्री राधे गोविंदा मन भजले हरि का प्यारा नाम है। जय नंदलाला जय गोपाला,
जय नंदलाला जय गोपाला,
जय नंदलाला जय गोपाला,
नंदलाला जय गोपाला।
गिरधर नागर कहती मीरा, सूर को श्याम भाया, सूर को श्यामल भाया। गिरधर नागर कहती मीरा, सूर को श्यामल भाया, सूर को श्यामल भाया। तुकाराम और नामदेव ने विठ्ठल विठ्ठल गाया। तुकाराम और नामदेव ने विठ्ठल विठ्ठल गाया। श्री राधे गोविंदा मन भजले हरि का प्यारा नाम है। श्री राधे गोविंदा मन भजले हरि का प्यारा नाम है। जय नंदलाला जय गोपाला, जय नंदलाला
जय गोपाला,
जय नंदलाला जय गोपाला।
नंदलाला
जय गोपाला।
राधा शक्ति बिना न कोई श्यामल दर्शन पाए, श्यामल दर्शन पाए। राधा शक्ति बिना न कोई श्यामल दर्शन पाए, श्यामल दर्शन पाए। आराधन कर राधे राधे कान्हा भागे आवे, आराधन कर राधे राधे कान्हा भागे आवे। श्री राधे गोविंदा मन भजले हरि का प्यारा नाम है। श्री राधे गोविंदा मन भजले हरि का प्यारा नाम है। गोपाला हरि का प्यारा नाम है, नंद हरि प्यारा नाम है। श्री राधे गोविंदा मन भजले हरि का प्यारा नाम है। जय नंदलाला जय गोपाला, 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 जय नंदलाला जय गोपाला। Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, both of you. Really nice. Thank you. Yeah. Even
Hey,
when
this is Jay. On a platform like Zoom and platforms like this, it's always works as a half duplex. So if any one person is speaking, it will block the audio from all other parties. So that is the reason why you can't hear
Raj.
Too. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
I
but I
see.
think there might be a setting somewhere inside Zoom that will remove all the audio benefits, but it will allow multiple parties' voice to be heard at the same time. But by default, it works like that. Any one party can speak at a time.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah, maybe the experts in Zoom in this class, they can figure it out for future for us.
But yeah, it's called
Yeah,
full
because
duplex.
yeah.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you.
Yeah, but it was a good effort, Raj Bhai, at
Oh,
least.
great.
Yeah, it was great. We could hear some beats, and Padmani beautiful as always. So
Always.
now, Sujata, are you ready with your question? Unmute, please.
Yeah, I'm ready. You know,
Okay.
in that verse where it says Rajas Tamas Chabhi Bhuya Satvam Bhavati Bharata.
Number 10, verse number 10. Rajas tamaj abhibhuye sattva bhavati bharat. Yes.
Yes, in that Cha Abhibhuya means having overpowered, or
Yeah, cha means and, abhibhuya means having empowered.
empowered or overpowered.
It could be either way. You can look at it. It's overpowering. See, Ramach. See, it's just like a see. You got to look at the whole sentence over here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
See,
so it depends what
it's like sattva is empowering. It's like a prevailing. It's like a overpowering it.
Okay. So
okay.
Yeah. So your sattva is prevailing basically.
Sattva is prevailing, and it's riding over the rajas and tamas.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Got that. Yeah, got that. Yeah. Thank you.
So having overpowered rajas and tamas.
Oh, got that. I was just a bit confused. I said because I had empowered before.
Yeah, overpower. It's like overpowering. Sattva is overpowering, and when rajas prevails, it's overpowering the other two. Okay. So there's always two underneath. The two wrestlers are underneath. One is on the top.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay.
And I remember the one other thing that you told us in a previous class is who prevails, the one that you feed.
Definitely.
The one that prevails. I mean,
definitely. I thought the one you feed. See, that's why the satsang is important. Studying of the scriptures is important because we're feeding it. Doing the seva, eating the sattvic food, right? Living in a sattvic atmosphere. The books we read, the movies we watch. So all of that makes a difference. Not just one or two things. All of it. We got to be very vigilant about it because these gunas are so powerful. They're so powerful.
Thank you.